ethics in the world of AI and privacy. Yes, AI is coming, the world is changing, there is data, and we're all playing this data game. And in all that space, it seems very, very, very scary. Now, how do we solve this? One solution is ethics, but then ethics is different for everyone. And where are you applying ethics? On the human identity, on the digital identity, on the data, on the human? Where and who is applying? That's also a question. And in which context? Now, these are fascinating conversations, interesting conversations. But who better than an economist who understands the potential of technology, the potential that it can create markets, it can impact and make a real difference to lives of people, somebody who's a business leader and investor, and somebody who is doing a great job in the space of digital identity. I'm talking about none other than Bianca Lopes. Let's go and talk to her about this evolving. Let's go and talk to her about this evolving landscape.
Hello, and welcome to the FIT4Privacy Podcast with Punit Bhatia. This is the podcast for those who care about their privacy. Here, your host, Punit Bhatia, has conversations with industry leaders about their perspectives, ideas, and opinions relating to privacy, data protection, and related matters. Be aware that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are not legal advice. Let us get started.
So here we are with Bianca Lopes. Welcome, Bianca, to FIT4Privacy Podcast.
Thank you for having me here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for sharing your time and now the insights. So you're everywhere, and if you look around in the world, in the tech space, the AI space, or the data space, what is going on around us? Because it seems scary.
Scary, yeah. Well, I think you don't need to go very far. Just the world around us is quite scary, and something that we should all take a pause in a minute to recognize, and just to question our own humanity. So the data world is not very much further than the unfortunate reality we created. We created a bit of chaos. We lost an understanding of boundaries, and those boundaries seep into not only things that harm us, but things that misinform us. So technology is at a state of being called for, what I would like to say, what the hell is this all for? And it's fascinating as a practitioner in identity and an observer and a student of artificial intelligence and all it encompasses, particularly around ethics. I'm one to say that there's much happening, but not enough understanding, not enough honest and open discussion. Hopefully some of the conversation we're about to have here.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's true. It's both scary and it's opportunistic because there's a lot of opportunity, and that's where you mentioned the word fascination. So it's fascinating to see what we can do, what the possibilities are, but we need to do it right. And that's where you mentioned the word ethics, and we're not doing enough because ethics has a meaning for every one of us.
Correct.
Each one of us in each demography, each society interprets it in own way. So would you like to share what is your take on ethics?
Well, I think we need an entire podcast for me to talk about my take on ethics.
We can.
I don't think that that's the purpose here. I think if you're asking me what's my take on ethics of where maybe we are in the conversation, is that there's much to do. I sit on this UNESCO AI Council globally with a hat as an identity expert. So for those of you listening out there or watching, I'm a person who's super obsessed about identifying people and things and understanding the power that has. It's almost like a selfish pursuit of finding oneself and the state of awareness. And that state of awareness in the digital world is one that is quite tricky. because it's about the boundaries we put out there. And if we think of the average digital service or interaction, we put a lot out there and we get very little to no value. And I'm not just talking about data ownership or words like that you've talked about, but I want to bring ethics to a practical example, not just a state of who has the right or wrong narrative, or who has the right to say what's right or wrong. I think one of the big problems of humanity is that we've forgotten what it's like to be humans. And we've forgotten in how just connected and just the same we truly are and are meant to be. And I think a lot of the narratives and identities we've wrapped up around this have us killing each other and doing horrendous things I can't help but just be saddened about. To me, technology is no different. That's why it's scary. And I think the narrative of scary is one that it pushes people away from questioning, makes people scared of, I'm not an expert, maybe I'm not going to ask that question. That's wrong. Like, the ethics is that gut feeling of like, is this right? Is it meant to be really like this? Like, think about it really simply. When work came home with you, because we all got sent to our homes with the pandemic, the boundaries got really weird, right? Like, you readapted, there's really cool things that happen. You happen to know a coworker's cat, and the privacy or the lines of boundaries change digitally. When I think of ethics, what you think about is, what is the trade-off, and which and how and who do I let in? Whether that's my house and knowing the name of my kids or the name of my plant or what I care about, or do I blur the things back behind me? Because that's a boundary. So when we talk about digital ethics and we talk about ethics in general, I'm no expert. I think you need a society, a community to have some shared understanding of the truth and what it's like to be human and what it's like to be respected, whether that's physically or digitally. Like, the digital world affects us physically every day, affects us posture, affects how we feel about ourselves. It affects, what we've equated our success. It's like, you are loved because you have followers instead of, you're liked because you have push notifications instead of some emotions. It's terrifying. So if you ask me, where's my stand on ethics? It's that these conversations happen. I have my own personal set of values that guide my life and guide the boundaries I set for myself, both in the digital and the physical world. Those are, my job is to communicate them and respect them of others. So that's, a very human answer. I think from a technical answer is, where are those boundaries? Where is that identity of me? What do I share? We live in a world of curated impression of ourselves. We're posting things that are not often the reality. No. So if you ask ethics, is like, does somebody have the right to create new things based on that? Is that helping society? Is that good for me? Do I have consent over it? Do I even understand what I'm consenting to? Or am I even given choice, which is the hardest part? I think there's something to be said about boundaries, of communication and clarity that is required in this industry that transcends where is your ethical stand. It's about just like, plain and simple, what are the terms of this? Like, are you in my face? Like, if this was a digital physical space, would you be sitting on my face right now, taking some advantage of me in a weird way that I just don't see and don't know? Or would you be respecting the boundary that I set out? Agreeing to terms and conditions and scrolling pages. It's not really the most ethical way, in my opinion, to build relationships. And if we're talking about digital trust and relationships, that's how the industry sets standards today. So I have a thing or two to say about that, if you can tell.
No. I think I fully agree with you with this data as a chess game, more or less, and things becoming more and more digital, especially in the wake of a pandemic. And we have a digital identity and we have the real human identity. Which one is real? Because everyone starts to search us, find the digital or data about us, and they start to make perceptions. They start to make judgments about this is how we are, how one is, he is, she is, and so on and so forth. And then they start to make judgment, they start to make conclusions. That's what the person is all about. And then even those, I mean, I call them the idiots who didn't have a voice in the past, because of social media and all this, now they have a voice. They can say anything, they can troll anybody, they can harm anybody, of course, in the digital sense of it. But behind it, it impacts humans. And it creates emotional, what do you say, distress, unless
At least
you are well educated. I mean, well
and it's not even
educated.
just about being educated. An educated person can still hurt.
Educated in the sense of digital. If you are aware that this is part of the digital game, the data game, as we say.
Yeah, like the scary part becomes what you just said, right? Like, Bianca, are you utopian to think that humanity will not judge? Haven't humans judged? Isn't that what our brain taught us to do? Fear or flight? Are you going to kill me or should I give you a hug? Isn't that how our brains needed labels to maybe process things? Or is it? I don't know. I often wonder what narratives societies have told ourselves and which narratives I truly believe. But I think that there's some ground values around, respect and boundaries and harm and physical well-being that are quite well understood if you want to be educated or if you're willing enough, to contribute. The digital world just blurred them because the value associated with that information. And then the services that are able to create, if we want to talk technical, the first party data associated with the identity of me is, in social media, Punit is one person and he's Instagram to his family or in his WhatsApp group with his kids or with his best friends. He's another human in academia and the books that he's published. And he's another person here as the host of FIT4Privacy Podcast. Am I saying you have a split personality here? Not at all, but I'm saying that there's many identities of you. And one of the things that most people have thought about wrong, that I'm a firm believer of just trying to share my understanding and perspective, is that identity is access. The identity you put out, the qualities, the informations you put on your LinkedIn versus on that, group chat, perhaps, really fun party day, being your true self, very expressive, without a fear of being judged, maybe you're not going to share the same. That in the digital world means access points, means credentials, means verification, means authorization, means authentication. Identity is often thought about in a linear way, like yes or no, binary, as if then privacy could be something that you say yes or no. Do you have my consent to have everything? And here's my terms and conditions, or no, then I don't get your service. The world doesn't work like that.
No.
How the heck did we do that in the digital form? Because first of all, we thought about identity wrong. We thought about understanding who is on the other side to the point that we now ask people if they're robots. Are you a robot? Could you please, robot, tell me if you're a robot? So the consequences of what you said earlier about judgment just get exponential when you think about robots. Or when you think about, a machine making a decision that is no longer you. So therefore, maybe they don't even have a good bone in their body. Isn't that the scary part? Or isn't the scary part precedes that starts with ethics around biases? Because the people building the code to then read machines and make sense of patterns are still people. And that industry is yet to be fully diverse and aware of privacy or ethics. If you look at the number of professionals working in a lot of these, they're not of all the parts and walks of life that represent humanity. So even that becomes scary in itself, because it's not about how I will judge your future photo or impression of yourself, curated or not, but it becomes about what the machine might judge before you even get the chance to have the chance, if that makes any sense. No, you won't even get the option to see the job application, because that's the level of intelligence. So is that a world of an equitable future? Is that what we're trying to build? I would freaking hope not.
I hope not as well, because the question is, we have this data, which we are already struggling to manage. And then we are already popping up the ethical question and saying, is the digital identity the human identity? And now we are at the cusp of when we say the AI will take off. Of course, AI is in its most primitive state as we see. But if generative AI comes, the self-learning comes, and it becomes more intelligent than humans, where are we headed? Because we haven't sorted out the ethical, the boundaries around the management of data yet.
We haven't sorted out anything. We're horrendous. Like, I'm not here to pawn on humanity, but like, have we sorted out anything? We burned the place we were supposed to go home. We measure the air that we breathe as if we could put some freaking wall boundary, like an invisible video game. And if people and lives could be traded in some sort of measure that I've lost count. So yeah, like, you know, it's just, I think it's scary, the things we optimize for. And I think technology will follow, because it will follow the money that is optimizing those things. And I sit here as a very privileged human, 1, to be healthy, 2, to be talking, 3, to be safe and alive, and to be aware of this technology, aware of the power that it holds, not in fear, but in curiosity, to say, there's got to be a better way to optimize it. There's got to be a better way to use this to maybe undo the wrong we've done in the physical world, in the real world. I'm not saying, you know, some sort of magic dust power. I wish it was, but it's...
At least in the physical world, it did. In the physical world, there was a church or a priest who was telling you, do this and things will go okay. And some people could be at least influenced or maneuvered. And in the digital world, we don't even have that.
Correct. Like, who is the arbitrary of it all? Like, in my day-to-day work, Punit, like, I'm a co-founder of a company called Authentify. And at Authentify, we look at building identity for physical things, because we decided to say that there's something private and something personal about a relationship with something physical that you own. And there's a lot of value in the things that physical humans own, whether that value is emotional or that value is physical, like a tangible value of being able to trade or being able to sell or being able to share, you know, just like we did with Uber and other sharing economy learnings. And we did this and said, okay, this whole relationship privacy boundary standard got really messed up in the world of retail, in the world of like overconsumption. And there's got to be a better way of looking at, you know, how do you leverage technologies like IoT? How do you leverage technologies like blockchain and build intelligence? Because first you need really good data. And as you said before, we've struggled already. When you look at the world of data and enterprises today, you know, we created silos. Data was told that that's the way you kept it safe, secure, and private. You were told that it belonged to you. So you had this whole phase around, you know, you can take massive CEOs of banks and large companies talking about their ownership of their clients. And the narrative is changing. That narrative is a narrative of freedom and ownership and, you know, equality and sharing and consciousness hopefully is changing, because I'm not the only one like you and the FIT4Privacy community that is just wanting to ask, there's got to be something more. There's got to be a better way to do this in a way that we can have a shared notion of truth, a shared notion of value. Like, that's what we look to do at Authentify, is like, through tokenization, build private ways where you don't need to know everything about me.
No.
You can just help me because maybe you were the manufacturer of my bike and, you know, I want to insure my bike, or I want to share my bike. I want to make money off my bike. I want to recycle my bike. I want to upuse. That's what digital is supposed to do. It's supposed to connect and enable human beings to do better, to share more, to optimize, to be intelligent about how we do things, to be conscious, not to do what we've done. So that's how I look at this, and like, that's how I get excited instead of just like scared about all the hard consequences of this technology.
No, there's definitely the scary part, but if we act responsibly, act ethically, which of course is a challenge, what does responsible and ethical and human and all that mean? But if we act responsibly, there is a huge opportunity to harness, there's a huge opportunity to leverage. And let's move to that side of the conversation. So,
Yeah.
yes, there's a lot of potential. Yes, there's a lot of scare, and yes, there's a lot of things we should have, could have, would have done, and we didn't do.
Yeah.
But now, looking forward, how do we set the right bar? Because if I see there is the OECD AI framework, if I see EU is coming up with the AI Act, almost we are nearly there. Then has done some AI things, let's put it like that. China is having its AI framework. We all doubt it, of course. We have all our perceptions about it, but there are things happening. So there is a sense of we need to do something. So in this changing world, when so much is changing in the regulation space, and everyone wants to leverage, utilize AI, utilize, and then of course we need to protect identity, protect data. So what would be a few things you would recommend, maybe to individual or even a company, maybe both? Let's do one at a time.
Okay. Let's talk maybe about the person and then we can go to a
Yeah.
company. Okay.
Yes, let's do that.
So if we talk about a person, I think taking account of your understanding of your digital identity and footprint. I don't mean it in a way of just fraud and cybersecurity, which I think a lot of banks and other institutions have talked a lot about that with people, like
Yeah.
don't share your password. But just take a good hold of your understanding of what you hold digitally and what kind of relationship with that asset or that boundary you have. I think that's a good exercise just for your mental sanity, having done it myself and having the practice of doing it weekly, of how you spend your energy. Your energy is about what you consume and the value you get. So if you start questioning that in the value or what you're trying to pursue there, you can start learning a little bit about your own behaviors and the things you value. Because who am I to tell you that, you should really care about this because Google and Facebook make money out of you scrolling on Instagram instead of talking to your loved ones over dinner. That's me passing judgment. The difference would be me saying, what is the things that you value and how are you consuming? Because, the internet or the Instagram or the portal is not the evil. It's what kind of what you're consuming in there. So I think that exercise, if I get practical in the corporation level, first is reframe your understanding of identity. Most companies have, to me, the wrong understanding of identity today. That seeps into how they make decisions about their data infrastructure, how they make decisions about their architecture, how they make decisions about even their software providers and how many they trust and just their understanding of the identity journey. Identity is about the people, the companies, the ecosystems you serve as a company. And data is about the journey of understanding the correlation between those two things, or three things, or four things. That's what forms an identity, is the correlation of facts. The facts are just pieces of data. And, intelligence is what you apply over that. So you can't get to intelligence if you don't kind of understand the pieces of the puzzle you're trying to capture. And unfortunately, the industry did kind of a big corporation a disservice because it decided you needed to hoard all this data and you needed to look at it this way and you needed to control it to trust it. And in today's system of decentralized data, just as a nature, by the number of stories and things about you that are out there, in order to create a big picture, you need a lot of information that are out of your control. So if you don't understand how that ecosystem works, it becomes really hard to play the game. So to me, it starts with identity, it starts with reframing your technology strategy around it. That inevitably brings in professionals from privacy, from ethics, from cyber, from fraud into the conversation, instead of as the no part of the conversation when something is getting launched or something is getting built or something is going to market. And a lot of this is thought about as a compliance exercise, and it's really not.
It's not.
It's really not. And that's the reframing that needs to take place. It's not a fear exercise for humans, and nor should it be a compliance exercise. Your exercise should be like, yeah, we build a really messed up world. There's some pretty intelligent people that build some platforms that gather a bunch of information about you because you got lazy about being human, and that's that. Move on. Like, it's just like there's things you can think about. But as a corporation, and there's legislations, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, there are.
you want to talk about the EU? There's the digital product passport in the EU. There's the right to repair in the US. There's also reasons to needing to know and needing to understand, because you're going to have to be held accountable to a different level of information than you were before. Digital transformation brings things, but brings a need for transparency. And accountability and traceability doesn't come without you knowing what's inside of your house first. So the advice is look inside, not with the eyes of compliance, but the eyes of like true transformation. Data is powerful, tells stories, but a lot of the stuff that we gathered was not about telling stories, about knowing to cross-sell. When you look at a lot of the data gathering exercises was knowing to cross-sell and upsell.
I agree with you fully. I think if I synthesize philosophically, because you waved it all from a philosophical standpoint, reframe, take a step back, reframe reflect on what's going on in your life or in the corporate world, incorporate all dimensions, and then reframe your understanding of things and see what do you want to achieve, what the values are, what do you value as a corporate, as an individual, and then make up your strategy, make up your plan, and do that more and more regularly rather than once in a year or once in 3 years. So that's very well said. And now, based on this conversation, the profound conversation we are having, if someone says we want to get in touch with Bianca, what would be the key touch points or moments or spaces in which they should get in touch with you, and how?
They can just reach out, add me on LinkedIn, Bianca Lopes. I usually come up pretty quickly there. Or look and leave your email and your name on my website, biancalopes.com. Be delighted to hear feedback, ideas. I'm actively involved in a lot of things around 3 pillars of my work, which are identity, access, and energy. So I work with things like fintechs. I work with regulators across the globe. I'm a very fortunate human to be super passionate about what I do and this work and identity. So if any of what I said interests you or you totally disagree, you are welcome to tell me, because I only learn by listening.
Yeah. And of course, if they want to stay in touch, there's the Data Gain newsletter. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. I'm
That's
actually
a wonderful
reviving
thing.
it with some really cool, exciting news in November. And I will be sharing this podcast, Punit, to the subscribers there, talking to them about the importance of privacy in this new data and identity world they're creating. I think a
Thank
lot
you
of
so
them have
much.
a lot to learn from your community.
Indeed, I think that's the thing. I was researching, you're doing so many cool things, but you mentioned 3 things and I didn't hear the third one. You mentioned identity, access, and energy. I heard about identity, I heard about access, but I didn't hear about energy. Is it the physical, human energy, emotional energy, mental energy, or the sustainable energy?
I am glad that my energy has caused you to ask that question. I think
I think
I
so.
totally believe I totally believe that everything in life, like Einstein says, is vibration. So energy, but no, I mean it's sustainable energy. So I work with sustainable energy all the way from my work in the UNESCO with AI and ESG around sustainable sources of energy, ways of tracking and tracing energy, because energy exists in the world. If you just even think of water, if you heat up water and then cool water, and the process of energy is in every step we take. So, and I actively sit on the board of a company that works with methane and blue carbon, and another one that works with CBDC infrastructure for energy, renewables, and the carbon market. So I'm very active in that space, trying to, take some lessons from Mother Nature and look at the world around us. Like, I don't know. There's so much that nature could have taught us that if we just listen closely, and there's some people listening closely because we have to now, and creating some really cool, innovative technologies around this space.
No, that's true. If you profoundly and deeply look at anything, That's driven by how nature is. If you look at how
Yeah.
computers are constructed and how mind works, it's very, 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 very similar. But of course, we need to spend time and, as you said, reflect on what's going on and reframe our understanding of things. But with that, I think it seems like we can talk for ages, hours, and days. But in context of the conversation of the podcast, let's call it time. And I would say thank you so much for your time and the valuable insights.
You're most welcome, Punit. I hope we have many more conversations. We can get technical next time around on NFTs and other things. Thanks, everybody, for
Absolutely.
listening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Thanks for listening. If you liked the show, feel free to share it with a friend and write a review. If you have already done so, thank you so much. And if you did not like the show, don't bother and forget about it. Take care and stay safe. Fit for Privacy helps you to create a culture of privacy and manage risks by creating, defining, and implementing a privacy strategy that includes delivering scenario-based training for your staff. We also help those who are looking to get certified in CIPPE, CIPM, and CIPT through on-demand courses that help you prepare and practice for certification exam. Want to know more? Visit www.fit4privacy.com. That's www.fit4privacy.com. If you have questions or suggestions, drop an email at hello@fit4privacy.com. Until next time, goodbye.